Welcome to the People of AI podcast, showcasing inspiring people with interesting stories in the field of artificial intelligence. I'm Ashley Oldacre. Let's jump right in. This podcast is sponsored by Google. Any remarks made by the speakers are their own and are not endorsed by Google. Hello, dear listeners. Last season, we focused on the incredible journeys that our guests took to get into the field of artificial intelligence. We learned that there is no one-size-fits-all career path into AI, and no matter who you are, what your interests are, or what you work on, there is a place for you to get into the field of AI if you want it. We also focused on how much more accessible the technology has become over the years, and how much more focus there is on building this evolving technology responsibly and ethically. If you are joining us for the first time and want to check out the episodes from last season, you can find them wherever you get your podcasts. And as for this season, we have some exciting and amazing conversations planned for you. And I am so thrilled to share an exciting new update for this season. Dear listeners, please join me in welcoming my new co-host, Gus.
Hi everyone, I'm Gus. Nice to meet you.
Luiz Gustavo Martins, better known as Gus, is a colleague, friend, and developer advocate on the Google AI Developer Relations team. He will join me as my technical counterpart as we interview our guests for the season.
But wait a second, where's Lawrence?
Good question. Lawrence wishes he could be here with us, but knowing him, he is working on some incredibly exciting new opportunities. All right, Gus, as we start with all of our guests, I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. So tell us about yourself.
As a developer, I've been working since the early 2000s. So I've seen a lot of stuff. I started developing for the web, of course. Web was the big thing in the early 2000s. Then I started working on for financial institutions. We did a software to calculate lots of metrics, risk, and fintech, let's say like that. Didn't have that name back then. And when it was around 2010, 2011, maybe a little bit earlier, Google released Android, and I loved it. I started to study it. I want to develop stuff, so I started studying and developing an app. It showed you the schedule of the TV, right? Remember TV, that thing you put channels, remember? So we had the schedule for that. I had a service. I used that to learn Android, learn Python, learn Google Cloud. And that was a cool thing because I did that as a side thing, right? I had my job, I worked my 8 hours, and then I went home and I kept playing with this. And I was kind of getting ready to maybe work with that as full time. The superpowers is I found the community. I started to talk to the Android community. I start to present at events, give talks, talk about my app, talk about doing Android things, libraries, how to develop, all these kind of things. And then because of that, I was invited to Google I/O 2012. Wasn't really invited. I tried to get a ticket, and as everyone know, Google I/O back then it was very hard to get a ticket. But then they did a code jam challenge that if you get some points, you would get a chance to buy a ticket. So that's how I made it. Was very happy. I traveled to Mountain View, went to the event. Was amazing. I never been to a tech event outside of my country. But when I came back, I said I want to work with these people. They look like nice people. And that's the Google. If you never been, it's where you meet a lot of DevRel, right? Like me, like I'm today. You talk to them, you had the opportunity to connect, and I was very excited about that because I saw this looks like a very nice job. I came back to Brazil. Couple maybe 1 year passed, and then I decided, look, I'm going to the wrong direction. I want to work as doing Android full time, maybe DevRel. Uh, and I, at the same time, due to many reasons, I wanted to leave my country. I want to live somewhere else, right? And I said, well, maybe if I got a job at Google, maybe they can take me somewhere else. And that's exactly what happened. I sent my resume, did the interview. They took me to the New York office, amazing office, by the way. And then I did the interview, and it didn't go well, and I didn't pass. And it was bad because I was there. I was very happy until the day they gave me the news. And we were traveling. I was with my wife. We were having fun, and then didn't pass. But the guy told me, "Hey, you were very very close. Maybe you should try again end of year." I said, "Okay." I came back home. I was very very mad at myself. Right? I didn't study enough. And then when I came back, I first thing I did is I went to talk to my boss back then, amazing person. Said, "Hey, I am going to the wrong direction. I love work with you, but that's not where I want to be in a couple of years, and I want to try this other thing." So I quit my job, and was very hard because I really love work with them, but I wanted to study almost full time, and whenever was my next time, I wanted to be ready, right? And if anyone has family, you know that planning to leave a country with family. I already have my daughter, so it's not something you can just yeah let's go and whatever. No, it's not like that. There's
Yeah.
lots of
Right.
planning. We had like a year of planning to make everything work. So I decided to study nonstop. The sad part is after after 2 months, a friend came, "Hey, can you help me with this Android app?" And he was a very dear friend. I said, "Sure, I can help you." And then I helped him solve some problems. A couple of weeks later, he came, "Hey, do you want to work with us?" And I said, "No, I just quit from a job because I'm studying. I don't want to work on something now." "No, we'll pay you." And they give me a number, and it was a very good number. And I said, I have no salary now. Maybe I should do this because it was a remote job. And there was also the opportunity to leave the country after a year. They would take me. So I started working with them. And at that same year, I started helping in other two startups. So I quit my job, but I didn't quit my job technically. And I kept studying. The good news is that next year, they called me for the interview, tried same process.
Google
But then
called you up.
yes, that was by maybe January. I did everything, and then was everything was fine. I passed, and then I started Google as Android DevRel. This was 2015. It was amazing. Work with lots of super nice people, people that I still talk to this day. Like I have managers that I were my manager that I still talk to them. Like we have bi-weeklies, right? Because I love talking to them. I learn a lot. But then a couple of things starts to happen. One, TensorFlow was open sourced in 2015, and when I saw this, I thought, this looks interesting. Maybe I should learn more about that. Then 2016, I guess, TensorFlow Lite was announced, which is the TensorFlow framework to execute models on device. And I had some ideas, and I created a small project. I started to study with all the internal resources we have. And when it was 2017, I get to my manager. One of my managers said, "Hey, we should pay attention to this. We should start to help developers externally to do machine learning on device or do machine learning." And then he bubbled this to his manager, and the reply was, "This is for PhD people. This is not for us." And then I said, "Okay, that's fine. I don't have a PhD, but I'll keep studying on my time, right? I don't work with that."
And
Luckily,
like
later,
when do you study? Like you've got a family, you've got a full-time job. Like where do you fit the time?
that's a good question. So I usually sleep late, very late. So when my wife likes to sleep earlier, and my daughter has to sleep earlier because she has school in the morning. So when they go to sleep, I study, right? I sit and start reading, watching some stuff that like sometimes I code. Uh, every time I could, I would read something. And also when you are Google, sometimes there's some talk about someone that's
Right,
on the
right.
field. You go there, talk to them. You so there is some I could do some sort of course not I cannot do a PhD yet. In the end, we end up doing some machine learning on the Android DevRel team because they know they after a while they understood that was not a PhD thing, right? And
What do you mean they understood that you didn't need a PhD to learn and to understand and use TensorFlow?
no, they understood that the technology had to get we should help developers do machine learning. because it's too big to be siloed to only research. So developers could
Oh,
help.
I see. So what you're saying is researchers were using TensorFlow first, and so your manager said, "No, you can't. We can't start to connect developers to TensorFlow because it's too technical and it's really only reserved for researchers." And so then what you're saying is you realized that developers really did need to know TensorFlow and actually could use TensorFlow because it didn't require a PhD in order to be able to use it. Is that right?
Exactly. And more than that, we if the technology we had needed a PhD, we should make sure to bring the barrier down and enable more people, right?
To use it, yeah.
So this was before even the TensorFlow DevRel existed. I remember that I worked with Lawrence, for example, in Firebase. Both of us, we did some Firebase DevRel. So this was before he was on the TensorFlow DevRel. But then I start working on some machine learning. But then when at some point I said, yeah, I don't want to do the Android anymore. I want to do TensorFlow stuff. That I want to focus my full time on that. That's
Hmm.
when I moved to the TensorFlow DevRel. Now we call AI DevRel because we have so many tech. So it's not only TensorFlow. We have JAX, the Palm API. We have many things. So then I moved, and then that's where I've been. I've been working with publishing models, doing transfer learning, decision forests. Did a lot of on-device machine learning, Keras, everything. So that's I'm very happy I did all these move. Let's say.
And we're so happy that you're on the team too.
Thank you.
And you are so knowledgeable. I mean, we've worked together on Simple ML and, and we're now going to be working on hopefully the Palm API too. So it's really neat to see. Yeah, you're just so good at explaining things and you know everything inside and out, which is really cool. So tell us what you were like as a young kid and how you got interested in the space of technology.
Sure. When I was a kid, I lived in a small farm. So we did live a little bit outside of the main city. It was a small city in Brazil, a small city close to Sao Paulo, which is a big city. And at one point, my father gave me a computer. I guess I don't know if people remember, it's a MSX computer. I don't know if it was popular in US. It was, but in Brazil it was. But the thing is, I like playing games, right? I like playing games. I've always loved playing video games, and having a computer enables you to play and create your own video games, right? So that was a thing that I really like doing this. Maybe I want to work on this. This is cool. I can create my own video game. So I always was thinking how to change games to be more like what I wanted. Uh, and that's why when I did secondary school, I did a technical school where you learn how to code. That was horrible. It was like 3 years, didn't learn anything. It was literally 3 years. I learned zero,
Oh
and
no.
was very bad. And but it's public school, right? It was hard. Public school, technical public school wasn't great. But then I went to college, and then I started doing college. It was I had to learn a lot. Then I had to learn, and in the end, I after a while I say I don't want to do games anymore. I love the field, but I don't want to do games anymore. It's I don't know. I like playing. I don't like doing them. I want to go buy and play, and that's it. So then in the end, I start. It was not very fancy. Some people offered me a job as an intern. I said sure, yeah, why not?
Job as what?
As a developer, I developed websites. So it was an intern, and then uh, I just kept with the tide. Is like how you say. I just kept going with the
Yeah.
tide and went to a job. I met lots of good people. Stayed there for many years. I don't
And
change
you were
jobs.
still in Brazil.
Yes, that all is still in Brazil. Uh,
And were you learning English? Like was your schooling the schooling was in Portuguese, right?
Portuguese. I had my. That's one thing that my mom. She was very wise. Is like, no, you're going to study English. She paid a school, like a private school for English, and I did when I was very young. So when I was middle secondary school, I had like I don't know 7 8 years of English,
Yeah.
but I never traveled outside of the US, Brazil, because we didn't have the money for that. So the English I learned, I knew. I watch movies, of course, right?
Hmm.
But it was just for me. I guess the first time I left the country, maybe it was 2005. So I was I was already working,
Yeah.
get my money, so
Yeah.
I had my things, and that was the first time I really used English, and it was fun because I traveled to Europe, where I traveled. I guess the first place was Paris, where my English was like, maybe you should speak French here.
I know. It's like you learn English and then you go to France.
Yeah, exactly. Then I remember I went to France, Italy, and it was France, Italy, and Spain. It was like I did all three using very cheap flights. And it's like I studied English for many years to go to France, Italy, and Spain, which was weird because I also went to Sweden. It was the same trip I went to Sweden, which
Oh
is like,
no.
why did you go to, I don't know, UK, right? Why did you go to the
Right.
UK where they speak English right there? No, 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 I don't want to go there now. But it was fun. I went to the UK the following year.
Yeah. Did
It's
you feel like learning English as a young kid helped with your studies in computer science at all?
oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Sometimes people ask me, "Hey, do you think I should study English to be a good developer?" I said, "Yes, for sure. If you can, please go and do that." Can you do without it? Yes, of course. It's just like doing life on hard, because if you know English, it's so much easier to read documentation, blog posts, talk to people. Way easier. And the problem is that, like, English when I was young, it wasn't like for anyone. Like, school in the public school is not easy. Was really my investment,
Mm.
and I'm very glad she did it. And because it's a huge difference from huge difference. And even today, we try to translate everything to many languages, but things are always first in English, right?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just very hard.
Right.
And learning how to be a good developer, if you know English, will make your life way easier.
Right.
And
Right.
so,
Well, hopefully generative AI can also start to help with that.
yeah, hope so.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yep.
So where are you based now and what was that transition like for you?
When Google offered me a job, I was living in Sao Paulo, right, with my
Hmm.
family. And then they offered me a job here in London, where I'm living for 8 years. I'm here. And then we said, yeah, let's go.
Finally, putting English to good
Yeah,
use.
let's use this English. And then we moved. It was the fun thing is like moving. I guess you moved countries, right? So
Yeah.
it's everything is different, right? People say, oh, it's easier. It's I don't know. It's different. Everything is. You have to relearn how
Right.
everything works.
Yeah.
How people
Insurance,
behave.
taxes, social
Everything.
codes, standing in lines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even just going to a drugstore to buy something,
Yeah.
like if you need something, I don't even know how to ask for something I used in Brazil, right?
Right.
So it was, and I was with my family. And so I had to, of course, I was trying to help them as much as possible on their daily routines also. But I guess it was a very interesting experience. I I don't want to do it anymore. I'm not going to move to another country, I hope. And but it was good. I learned a lot.
It's so wonderful to hear. And the theme with you, Gus, that I've noticed across your journey is this love and this fierce passion for learning, right? Like jumping in from different cities, the technology, and your curiosity and your passion for learning has then been so strong that it has translated those things into being your main focus. Your love for video games led you to study computer science. Your
Yep.
love for Android and your curiosity in Android led you to become a developer advocate for Android. Same thing with TensorFlow. You got curious and started learning. And I think these themes of just learning and being curious, I think just speak so strongly to you and are such a huge part of who you are, and I think what makes you so incredibly unique. But I'd love to ask you, like, we've talked a lot about developer relations, but maybe some of our listeners don't really know what that is or what that entails. And I'd love for you to explain what developer relations is and what work is involved, because maybe somebody out there might be like, hey, those are all the things I want to do. And I didn't know that this job existed. And this is the job for me.
Nice. That's a very good question. Developer relations is the job of helping developers use a technology the best way possible. So Google as a company have many tools focused on developers, right? So Google has, I don't know, Google Search, Docs, Slides, all this. It's not really for developers, but we also have tools that are direct to developers, so they can produce apps, sites, or stuff like that. So Google Cloud, Android, uh, lots of our Chrome technology, all Firebase, Flutter, all of that, they are products for a target audience, which are developers.
And these developers are essentially app builders, or not just app builders. Or my understanding of a developer is a software engineer who wants to build something either on a device like a phone or a computer and wants to be able to build like a feature or an app or a website or something that is then used by another person, right?
Exactly. That's exactly that. So at first, it's mainly what people that can code. So we help them use our libraries. But the technology has evolved to an extent that we can help more than just roots developer, people that do lots of coding, but also other, we can help other people in the org to help understand an app, help understand our cloud and stuff like that. And our goal is to, because we, since we are here, we are DevRel are usually the, we call them the user zero,
Oh, yeah.
which is the first user of any product. So when someone develops a new API, a new library, something, we are the first ones to try. We see the, what is the bad part that we need to improve. We see the good, what the developer was thinking when they created that. So we understand a lot, so we can give a lot of feedback. And then we can do lots of things. We can, for example, be the voice externally about an API. For example, I do a lot of TensorFlow, so I can talk about TensorFlow to external people because I understand how it was built, how to use it. And then people can tell me, hey, TensorFlow is good on that, bad on that. And then I can take this feedback internally and improve the product. So this is one of the tasks of DevRel. Another one is to create sample code. So since I know I have been doing this for a while, I know the team that built the library, we can create sample to help other developers achieve results faster. Because we know that learning a new thing sometimes is annoying, sometimes take a lot of time. So we try to decrease that. We try to making the learning curve easier for the developer. So we create sample, we create a blog post, we write documentation. There are people that they only write documentation. That's what they do. They are very good at writing and putting the ideas in a proper sequence to explain. There are people that love doing videos. They record videos and explain stuff. There are people that like podcasts, for example. There are people that they deal with the community directly. So they organize events, they find people in the community to mentor them. They can organize, so that you start organize a local event and then a bigger event, and then all of a sudden they're helping you, I don't know, with Google I/O, Women in ML, or some other big events, because you have this expertise of organizing these things. With time and understanding, you go from the voice of the community inside, so you can help direct future products to be more aligned with what external people wants to use, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the evolution. So you become a someone that can help Google evolve in a way that you have
Right.
like a lot of impact to
Right.
everyone else. So this is basically what DevRel does. It's
Right.
being the voice of the product.
So it's the relationships.
Yes.
Yeah, the voice of the product, but also the relate you sort of build the relationship with the users, with the people who use it. And I personally think that this is, being on this developer relations team as a program manager, I love this work so much because it is such an amazing combination of, you have to know the technical side, the ins and outs of how the code works and how a product works. But then you also bring in the sort of educational element where you're teaching and instructing and giving talks and events. And so if you're sort of someone who loves to not just learn about the technology and how it works, but share it and help other people adopt it, this is such an incredible space. And it also uses all of these different skills that you wouldn't traditionally find in like a traditional software engineering job or a sales job or a product manager job. Like you sort of have all of these things that you bring together. And I think this role is so important and is often, I think, even overlooked because it really is this bridge between the people who build the product and the people who use it. And this team really makes sure that there's this feedback loop, right? Of you use it, we use it, then we share it with developers who then give feedback. And then sort of it helps build that trust and that connection between the product and the user on both ends.
I think that's
I'm like the advocate for the developer advocate team.
yes, yes.
You ask this very famous question to all of our guests, which is that there was a very significant shift that has recently happened in this space of AI. And I wanted to ask you that same question. But even before that, like, describe this shift. It's assumed for everybody who's in the industry what this shift is, but I'd love for you to explain it to me.
I guess you're mentioning about what happened 2022 with the Gen AI wave of stuff that
Right,
happened.
right.
But the thing is, when I started doing machine learning, uh, 15, 16, something like that, what we did was you get a lot of data and you train a machine learning model, right? And then one thing that I learned is that, oh, I can get someone else's model with my data and make that model good for my use case. That's something called transfer learning. But then last year, some new kinds of models start to show up, right? So I guess one that made a lot of fuss, let's say like that, was DALI. When DALI
Yeah.
was first released,
And
wasn't
DALI
last
was
year.
the image generation.
Yes, from
Yeah.
OpenAI.
Yeah.
So it wasn't from last year. DALI 1, I guess it's from 2020, 2021, something like that. It could generate some images, but then when DALI 2 came, it was very good. It generated a lot of very good images. And what happened then is that people started discussing uh, why not open source this model. And
Mm-hmm.
working at Google, I know the process of open sourcing or releasing any model, right? I've been doing this for years. There's a lot of legal PR involved because the models have to be safe. We
Right.
cannot release something that can be harmful
Right.
because we know that people can misuse, right? So there was a very high bar. When people start to ask, oh, we need this model open source and stuff, I knew it wasn't that easy, right? Because you could generate fake people easily, and that's a problem, right? If
Right.
you give this tool
Right.
to everyone, was a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
But then a company called Stability AI open source exactly that. And then when that happened, I remember I saw that and said, oh my God, what happens now? Because it's like the genie is out of the bottle, right? They opened the Pandora box. They cannot close that anymore. And they dropped the model on GitHub, and then
A
other
stable diffusion
models.
is a model that generates images.
Yes. So what happened is when they released DALI, they told, oh, we did DALI with these techniques here. And then people figured out, oh, so that's how you did it. So people created a model, the stable diffusion model, using similar techniques, trained with external data, and released the model. And then all of a sudden, everyone had access to generate images from text. All of a sudden, everyone had that access.
Oh, wow.
That day, something changed.
The day that the stable diffusion model to generate any kind of image
Yes, yes,
changed
yeah.
something for you personally or for the industry or
It changed for everyone because at that moment, something completely new was
yeah.
available to everyone
Yeah.
without any boundaries.
So sort of to summarize, when you say this big shift, you're saying the big shift was when all of a sudden all of these models became accessible to the public.
Yes.
That's what you're saying, the shift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because, if you had asked me, like, because I've sensed this too, that there was basically a big shift that has happened, but I wouldn't describe it the same way that you would, or maybe I would, but it follows the same guidelines of, because I've been on the TensorFlow team for about 4 years maybe now, and working with the product team, the TensorFlow product team, and I also remember the days when TensorFlow originated as a a machine learning platform where researchers, it was really only researchers or people in the field who really, really, really knew the ins and outs of the math, the code, to be able to use this platform and to build things with the platform. And the evolution that I have seen is that it has been, and it started with you too, like the accessibility to the technology from not just PhD researchers, but to developers. And I think for me, the huge shift that has happened is that now these stable diffusion text to image models, these large language models, which is text to text models, um, they really have allowed for anybody out there to engage with, as you said, a machine learning model. And that, I think, has been what I've seen. The huge revolution is every single person around me like is talking about it. They're using it. They're generating text and images with it, and it's bringing up all of these concepts of, ethics and, the right way to handle these. Congress is getting involved, teachers are getting involved. Like, this is really bringing up such a philosophical and ethical discussion too. So it is really shifting our society, and that's for me the biggest shift that I've seen. Is, I think, from a technology standpoint, you're seeing it as like, wow, all of these people now have access to these models and can start doing things. But I'm seeing the shift on sort of the larger scale sense, where it really has just become an explosion into the lives of everyday people, and it's becoming sort of, dinner conversation discussions. And I think it's incredible because this is the evolution. Like, we're in the middle of a historical moment where, like, like technology is evolving, but we still have so much to figure out. So I'm excited for that.
On the same thing that you said, I guess these models enable people to prototype stuff real fast, right?
Right.
So they can fine tune this model, they can make these models behave the way they want. And the model will try to behave like that. There's not that the model try to behave that. These large language models, what they do is they're very good at complete as an autocomplete. So do you know when you're typing something and there's a autocomplete on the phone or when you
Yeah, or in your
so
email. Yeah.
yes. So they are very good at predicting the next thing you're going to say.
Right, right,
Right.
right,
Not say
right,
right. They are very so good they can predict the next not only word nor sentence, they can do paragraphs. They're
right,
very good. So that's how they
right.
can do this magic, right? They can autocomplete. It's a
But it's
super
not
good
really
autocomplete.
magic, it's
No, no, it's
math.
yes,
It's like
exactly.
super, super, super high level math. And I think that's the other thing that I I'm finding fascinating the longer I spend time in this industry, is that, it does appear to be quote unquote magic, but this technology it's enabled by just super, super high performance math that is not different than anything else we've seen in
Yes.
technological evolution. So I want to just put a point that
Yeah.
it can appear to be magical or thinking or dreaming, but it's not. It's just super, super high level math.
Exactly. And when we saw that in the beginning, we saw we can there was one example on the TensorFlow site where you could use something called RNN, recurrent neural network, to train something to create music, lyrics, not audio, lyrics.
Yeah.
And the idea is it can predict the next word from a sentence.
Yeah.
But we didn't imagine it could be go that far, like be so good.
Yeah.
And of course, we're training with hundreds of lines
Yeah.
of text.
Which was, I think, actually the first revolution, right? Is the access to data,
Yes,
where data was sort of the first big breakthrough in enabling machine learning.
definitely. And it's now it's on a level that's, imagine you have all the internet,
Yeah,
all of it,
right,
and then you
right,
train a model there. We used to train on 1,000 lines of text, like 10,000 maybe. It was, oh, it's too much. And now it's billions lines of
right,
text. And
right, right,
of course, that brings other issues. For example, if I have all the internet, there are some places of the internet that are just horrible. And we
right,
are going to use, not we, but people will use that data
right,
because it's unfilterable. Some things are,
right.
you can try to remove, of course, remove the obvious, but there's some stuff that, so that's why there is a lot of attention to responsible AI and what these models generate, because they are trained on sometimes things that are bad, right? Just plainly bad, lies, things
Yeah,
that are not real.
right,
And that's one of the works of the researchers, right? To mitigate,
right.
help mitigate that
Right,
problem.
right. And the responsible AI team as well. Yeah,
Exactly.
is to make sure that we really focus on establishing tools and guidelines around sorting out the data libraries, making sure that the data comes from respectable, you know, legitimate
Sources.
sources, is trained and sorted through correctly. So yeah, and we're lucky to have a good team for that. So
Yeah, BART is a one implementation of a text to text model. And that's a very good product to look and understand that having the model is not the only thing you need,
right.
right?
And first of all, anybody can use Bard right now. You just type in.
Bard.google.com, it's available to a lot of places in many languages, definitely available in Portuguese.
And it's available in French too. I've tested it as well.
And it's a very good use case for you to learn how a product's not only, oh, there's this super powerful model. That's not enough, right?
Right.
Building a product is harder than that.
Yeah.
And Bard by itself has a lot of care around when there gives you an answer. You
Right.
can say if this answer is good or bad. You can search the topic on Google. You can export it to workspace like Google, I guess, spreadsheets for sure.
Yeah.
And you can integrate with Google Lens, so it can
Yeah.
help you with images.
Yeah.
For people researching things,
Yeah.
it's a great tool. I use it with, of course, I don't use only Bard. I use with Google Search because sometimes I have to validate some things. I use with Wikipedia. Sometimes I have to go read more, some things that I don't know. And as a content creator, you end up like having to rephrase something, and I go get short on words, so I ask Bart to, hey, rephrase this for me, and then the
Oh.
solution is, oh, nice, I like this, or rephrase this shorter or longer. So this kind of thing
Oh,
really
nice.
helps. Who is not
Yeah.
a like a very good writer, let's say like that.
Yeah, I've used it for writing too. I've used it for I love to write like little poems for when I write cards to friends and just like funny poems. And I recently used Bard. I had my cousin just got promoted, and so I was like, "Hey Bard, help me write a poem that rhymes for my cousin who just got promoted to vice president, and something related to coffee." And it just and it's funny because and that's what I love also about these tools is that that's exactly what they are. They are tools. I
Yep.
did not copy paste the poem because I didn't think it was actually very good. But I was able to take a couple of lines, adjust them, change them, and I think that's also the super important thing to call out is that, these tools are exactly that. They're tools. They're not meant to replace any of the work that we do. They're meant to enhance,
Yep.
support, educate, and just sort of partner on the work that we're doing or the tasks that we're trying to accomplish.
And it's here to help us, right? Help us do better, help us write better. I use
Yeah,
that to write better, to understand
right,
things.
right.
uh
To do math.
yeah, to
Basic.
help math. I took, sometimes I used
Listeners
to
will know
code.
I'm like so terrible at math. It's like my reoccurring comment that I keep saying across all episodes. I'm terrible at math.
I try to use for coding, but I'm still not good at using it for coding.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's, I guess I have to practice more. I don't know, practice more
Yeah.
using the tool to help me code.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a very good tool. I highly recommend people use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. Same here. I'm so excited that we had this conversation, Gus, today about generative AI. And I'm also excited because we have some folks who have been in this industry for a really long time, but we also have folks who have just entered the industry and they're bringing this really fresh perspective on where this is headed as well. So hopefully it will sort of we will create this full end-to-end picture of sort of the context, because we did a lot about that in the first season. We talked a lot about the history and sort of the origin of AI. And I think now, since we are in such an exciting time, we're going to be talking about what's happening sort of right now. So this is an amazing place to be, listeners.
Yes, so amazing people that know a lot in very specific places, like people from the community, people from that decision makers, people that understand the developer perspective, the regular non-developer perspective, people that understand the social impact of AI in general, and they're going to share their perspective with us. So it's great. Some very interesting backgrounds from people that you learn a lot. I've learned a lot by talking with them.
Yeah, Gus, let's get started on this amazing journey. I'm so glad you're here with me on it.
I'm very excited for this. Let's go.
If you would like to learn more about our conversation or our guests, check out the links below. Please subscribe, and if you're feeling extra generous, give us a 5-star rating. We would love to hear from you, so leave us a comment. We'll read every one. Until next time, thank you for listening.